What's up, Flip Factor family? This is Michael Green with the Flip Factor podcast, the #1 podcast dedicated to teaching you how to find and win high profit flips so you can make more money. Right? Who doesn't want some more money? But also, when you have that more money, what do we get to do with it? We get to travel more, have freedom, and do whatever the F we want. So I kind of like having more money, right? We got to do what we got to do. By the way, we got Delante Desouza. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this guy, but he is getting big very quick. We won't be able to afford to get him on the show anymore. We're already paying him $10,000 an episode now. I can't even imagine once his show hits HBO, what's going to happen then. It's going to be out of hand, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I like doing this in my, free time while I, A-list celebrity and all that.
Exactly. Before you hit it too big and we can't afford you. Now, I was saying, did I say dollars or did I say pesos?
I think you said pesos.
I'm sure it's pesos, by the way. I'm sure. Because dollars, no way, man. We love you, but I don't know if we can afford you. We'd have to, we have to find some B-listers. Somebody. We get one of those actors from like one of the cool TV shows we used to watch in 1987. You can afford. So we got a really cool topic today, Delante. You're joining us for is how to have complete financial freedom just flipping 1 to 2 houses each month, like consistently. So it's a pretty cool topic that I want to get into. Before we jump in it, and I'll make sure to repeat it again, really quickly, if anybody wants to do any coaching within our group where we help you walk through how to get started, or if you're already running a great business and you want to learn the details of how to really grow that business, we have a couple masterminds that we run and we really work with people very one-on-one, very intensely, so that way they can get results. And that's the focus of it. Very different from any coaching program I've ever been in because it's all about the results. It's not, no program. You get to work with me very, very closely over a long period of time to kind of build something out special. Because see, no results happen overnight. That's the one thing we always preach on this show is that it takes time and it takes work. It takes effort. I wish I could tell you it was simple. It is much simpler when you work with the right person, the right way to get to the place you want to go, but I have to tell you, it's still going to require work and effort. So why not? What I've learned from my coaches recently is obviously in the last couple of years is if you take the most direct path to where you want to go, it's about 20% of the work that you would do, right? So when you take that scenic route, it just takes too long. Often we never get to our location that we want to get to, which is flipping houses, making money, and flipping just 1 to 2 houses a month. So if you want to work with me or in our group and to help you kind of build something special out, you feel free to contact me at mike@theflipfactor.net, and that is going to be mike@theflipfactor.net. That's my email. And you can also go to theflipfactor.net, and that's the website. We have all our podcasts are up there, a lot of free gifts, cool stuff. We have different trainings we do for free. Always trying to give back to the community to make sure that we're helping the newbies, the people that are just getting in to get an idea of how things are done. So feel free to go visit that website. Now let's get into this topic that I've been very excited to talk about, how to get complete freedom from 1 to 2 houses each month consistently. Yes, consistently is the key to that word, by the way, because it could be one of the things I've experienced. I've had as much as like 12 or 13 houses a month and then none for the next 2 months. So like made 300,000 one month and lost 150 the next. And somehow I was really stressed out, even though I was still like 150K ahead. It just isn't a way to do business. The consistency piece is the key. So Delante, let me ask you this question. What are some of the myths that you're hearing from people? Because you're a little more on the front side of talking to people who are really new. I've been doing this a while. I really work off some very high level, very clear processes that win every single time. But I've forgotten a little bit what it's like to be so new at this that I haven't done anything. So I know you're very much on the front line. You talk to a lot of the people that are very new to the game, always giving back and helping. What are some of the common myths you're hearing from people, about the subject of doing 1 to 2 houses each month?
I guess the first thing I always hear just right off the top of my head is that people think it's easy. It's amazing how many people think that if you watch just a couple of YouTube videos and listen to a couple podcasts, you're a master house flipper now and you're running like you have a 7-figure business that you can now take to the bank with. I mean, it's just crazy. It's really interesting because these videos teach you so many different things in so many different ways. You got so many house flipping gurus out there that teach you what worked for them in their market, or like what's working for them. What's voicemails getting them deals, or like, here's how you do a rehab a certain way. It's not concise enough knowledge and information for that new investor. Secondly, they don't really know how to tell what's good information from what's bad because they're new. So like, they don't know if the information that they're even getting worked, 20 years ago, but isn't working now. You know what I mean?
Which is really common, by the way. I've actually paid like $30K to get a lot of that advice where I'm like, dude, that's not working like 4 years ago. And come to find out the person who was teaching me, who said they were a house flipper, hadn't flipped houses. And, they'd become a coach and they were making all their money coaching and they just weren't really connected to what was working. And it's a really interesting business because it changes all the time. Like we've literally 10 years in and everyone always asks like, Mike, why would you have a coach? What is there you can learn? And I'm like, there's always room to learn. Like if you're not on this evolution of constant and never ending improvement, on that journey, then you're not going to really make it in this business because there's been major changes in the last couple of years that have changed everything. Like in this market where everyone's struggling right now, we're having some of the best years we've ever had because of this constant and never ending like improvement of our systems, our processes. And really just none of my competitors are doing that. Just like such a small percentage that it's almost like the few people that are doing it, we just know each other and we're hanging out, having fun, and we're not really competition because it's like us and then it's like 400 flippers and then another one of us and like 400 more flippers, another one of us. So like for the most part, all of our competition just is following fairly outdated stuff and struggling to get deals, struggling to get good contractors. Like think of how common those statements are. And the fact that we don't struggle with either is a testament that we're doing something different. So yeah, obviously the thing I've seen about YouTube, and because I'm a big YouTube watcher even today, and I love watching videos and learning, and I'm the kind of guy that'll digest like 10 videos just to get like one nugget, one cool thing I didn't think of, because that's where I'm at these days. In order to learn, I have to take in a lot, and there's always some good stuff in there. But I realize that a lot of it's incomplete, right? They'll give you a statement, a very like blanket, like you always do this. This is the rule of house flip, because for some reason people like to click the certain rule of house flipping. But one thing that they're never really considering, and one thing I've learned as a coach to be a high level coach and really be able to get great results, is you have to know the context of the question, right? So Delante might ask the question and the answer might be A, but the same question might be answered by Tanya and the answer might be B, because the context of the question will be very different, right? So somebody's like, should I just go in and pay all cash for my deals, or should I quit my job and start house flipping full time? Yeah, there's a lot of context to those kind of questions. Like I need to know more. I can't just give you that answer. And on Facebook and all that, we're usually just teaching about one subject, and contextually it's like the context is very clear to us and very complete for us, but for the person listening, they're just getting some ideas. How they apply those ideas is where the high level of like interaction that me and Delante constantly are always masterminding together with our group and everyone else to really understand the context of it, right? Because that's the key. And there's times where people ask me like, Mike, what is this? And they'll be like, well, you said it was always this. And I'm like, no, I never say anything's always anything, because that's one of the main things I teach, is that give me some context. And if it's this, it could be that. And if it's that, it could be this. But I have all the angles figured out. Like depending on what direction you're coming from, there is a different, most optimal play for everything we do. So you're not just learning a one size fits all house flipping plan, right? You're learning all the different possibilities. So you got to learn, like in this particular scenario, there's usually 3 to 4 different common possibilities. And this is the most optimal way to handle each. And see, that's a much higher level way of thinking of house flipping or any problem that comes up with house flipping, versus saying, well, okay, yeah, the best thing to do is this. This is why you never see me writing on Bigger Pockets or anywhere else. I love Bigger Pockets. I love reading stuff there. I think it's like one of the most phenomenal sites out there. But I unfortunately am not a great writer. And the reason I don't write like blogs and stuff and share with the community is because I'm always, if I give like something and I write it out, it's going to be like 95 pages long, because I'm like, well, depending on this, depending on that. And I don't want to give incomplete information, right? I don't want to be like part of the problem that I've seen. And no one's doing this on purpose, by the way. But I think when you really get in a high level of decision making, you have to really think through exactly like, okay, what is the context of this? Like, what are the things that matter? Like, what would failure look like? Am I willing to fail? Would failure mean I lose my house and my life? And, or would failure mean just I got to work a little harder for a week or two, right? So yeah, maybe a little harder for a week or two, you can handle failing. But if it's like, I'm going to lose my life savings, then maybe it's not worth the risk, because see, the consequence is too big. So that's when context comes in, right? We have to understand like what the risk of what we're doing, how does that apply to you? And that's super big stuff. So you say that a lot of times people just think it's easy. It feels easy once you learn the right ways, for sure. However, learning the right ways and learning the most optimal counterplays to every scenario that comes up in house flipping, that takes a little bit of time. That generally, like, I think the fastest we usually do is 3 to 6 months is going to be pretty fast for people to really have a deep understanding of the important stuff. And then that journey doesn't stop there. It goes on for long periods of time. And then what are some of the other things you're hearing as far as
Second thing I've heard a lot is that people think that the optimal strategy is just to make 100 offers at 70% ARV, like 70% rule, and then see what offers stick. Usually when I talk to those guys, they've never gotten a deal and they've been doing it for like months on end, which, you know, makes sense why. So that one was popular too. Third one I hear a lot is...
Let me speak on that one before we jump into the third one, making a lot of offers, because I used to do that for a long time and it worked. So I get why people go there with that. For many years when we were a depressed market, you could make a lot of offers. And because the market was so desperate, if you made enough offers, someone would jump out and take one of them. So you would always be rewarded for the fact that like there would be somebody super desperate to sell and just like, yeah, take my house. However, we've had a big shift in the last couple of years from what we called a desperate market that was really favorable to the buyers to a seller's market. And it's very favorable to the sellers now. So with this strategy, the reason I had to get away from it about 4 years ago is because I'd make 100 offers and I usually get one, but I could do like 100 a week. So it was like 50 deals a year, or I could do 200 a week. I'd make 100 deals a year. And what I realized is I would be in 200-300 offers, 3-4 weeks go by and I just get nothing because there's no one desperate enough, right? I wasn't getting that one outlier anymore who would just take my, doing it. So what I found to be a better strategy in our evolution is to get more specific now. So now I make a couple offers a week and I'm generally getting one of them. So it's more like instead of 100 to 1, it's like 3 to 1 right now. So I'm getting very, very, very dialed in on like where is my best opportunity at. And this is how I've went from like 80 hours a week to 15 hours a week, is legitimately just by figuring out where's the best place for me to focus and make all my money. The 20% of what you do makes you 80% of your money. It's getting focused on that 20% and then eliminating the other 80% completely.
Point number 2 kind of feeds off of point number 1, right? You just mentioned how the 100 offers to one deal worked some years ago, but now it's a little bit different, right? Same thing with collecting information that's outdated. These are all pitfalls that you can fall into as a new investor. Believing these myths is just going to set you back even more so than where you were before.
Yeah, I even like to say like not just set you back, but completely sabotage you from results. I mean, it's if you're doing everything right, you still work, right? But as soon as you take 1 or 2 things you're not doing right, you're diminishing your competitive edge. You see, you have to think about like, okay, who's the average flipper out there that I'm competing against and how well are they doing at this? And the reality is the good news for you, not as well as you might hope, but most of them are at least following more updated practices. They're not completely following stuff that doesn't work anymore. So you've got to not only know all the best practices, but my belief is you have to understand them and implement them well and follow through with them well. And when you do that, you create just amazing, crazy, like big advantages over your competitors. And you're able to like beat them out. And this is very true for newbies, people I've been doing it 20 years. None of that really matters. If you're new, you should learn the best practices. It's that simple. You don't want to learn let me get the beginner stuff. There is no beginner stuff. There's either what I'm doing works and gets me a deal or it doesn't. So if you're new, you need a deal more than anyone. If you're new, you know what I mean? You got to be able to get out there and win your first deal and make a profit. Because if you don't, like how long are you going to try? Most people make it anywhere from like a couple months to like 6 months max of like trying before they get like distracted and do something else. They go into Forex trading or Amazon drop ship or whatever one of the other million things you can do. You can go flea marketing or something, right? There's something's going to get your attention that seems more easy. And then house flipping does.
Third thing I hear a lot from new investors is that they think that they have to be salesy, right? Like they got to say all the slick words and have that slick lingo when dealing with sellers in order to win deals. Actually, funny enough, I thought that was true for a while before I found out that painfully wasn't the case. It's really interesting. Just going on what I thought, I remember we were working together and I was making a ton of phone calls, to agents about, wanting to buy like their listings. And, I tried to approach it with kind of like the sales type of like voice, like, hey, this is Delante, like I'm looking at buying your house or whatever. I forgot what I was saying, but it just sounded real like shaky and like real suspicious. And I remember I was getting like agents saying, I'll call you back, and never call me back. And
they rejected you, man.
Like I got stood up by the agent. Yeah, I was just getting like that. I got a couple of hangups actually. And I was just frustrated to the point where I was like, agents are just terrible people. Like I just don't like them. And I was like growing a personal resentment and hatred towards agents. And then, you overheard me on the phone and you were like, well, why don't you try doing this? Like, don't sound like a salesman. That's problem number 1. And then I remember after we made the shift and we got a script, like a concise script of what to say, my deal came in like that next call, which was so crazy. But yeah, I just say that to say that like, a lot of new investors think that sales is the way to go. And like being a salesman is the only way to like succeed in getting deals. And we actually talk about being, an anti sales.
Yeah, it's such a big thing now because you're right. People think, well, if I'm not real polished and, super quick, and honestly, a lot more rapport is built when you're more like the person you're dealing with, and most people are not salespeople. And I can tell you, I've bought no houses off of salespeople. The people I buy houses from are just salt of the earth, good people in general, just nice people, little old ladies, people who are just like want somebody they can trust who's going to be nice to them and treat them right. And I always make sure I do all those things. And you should make sure you do that too, because, it's just the right way to live your life. And it's also going to be the best way to run your business long term. With that being said, it's like you have to understand this higher level concept of anti-selling, where instead of getting in and being like, okay, give them the alternative close, or, say this thing and watch people magically, just give you their house. I don't doubt that a lot of that stuff works, but where I'll tell you again, Mike, we always talk about context. And when you think about who's teaching a lot of this sales stuff, they're teaching you how to sell like a set of knives, or I've bought a set of knives before just because people, just to get them out of my face. Like, here's $100, man, just leave me alone. I can't take anymore. You can actually push and bug someone into buying a $50 item, right? You just be annoying and just persistent, and they just will buy just to kind of get rid of you. But what I found was when you use those same pressure-filled tactics and annoying tactics, when it comes to the biggest sale or, piece of money or investment of someone's life, just doesn't happen that often, because we're not talking about $50 set of steak knives. We're talking about, $100,000, $200,000. And we're talking about like a really big thing. So if people don't trust and like you, and they don't feel like they have enough information to make a decision, and that you provided that for them, they will not be pressured in my experience, especially these days. Maybe back in 2011 and 12, or, 10 and 11, things were a little more depressed. You could do that here and there. But now people are pretty confident. If they don't trust you and like you, and you're coming in all slick and polished, you're actually breaking rapport. So if you worry that maybe I'm not a fast enough talker, I get nervous sometimes. Well, guess what? The people you're meeting with are nervous just like you. So just go in there and be authentic, be yourself, have a conversation, just get to the heart of things, be caring, be thoughtful, be respectful of them, and do your best and make a deal. And it's pretty interesting. Now, we have a whole science behind it. I know I make it sound like it's just go in there and have a conversation and it'll all be great. Well, there is a science to being natural, which sounds kind of weird, right? Because it's like it shouldn't be a science to being natural, but there is some stuff you learn to make yourself not like, you're basically removing all your old beliefs. Like you were saying, Delante, you had to remove what you thought worked. So a lot of the science is helping you remove and get back to the social freedom that's created when you can just say what you want and know that people will accept you either way. And if they don't, they don't. But most of the time, they're going to love that you're honest and authentic, and you're straightforward. People like working with people that they get and they like, and they think they have commonality. So there's some big stuff we do. And since I've applied this, first of all, I would say the biggest thing that's happened for me is I went from being like getting good results, but being stressed out about those results because it didn't feel natural. I always felt like this angst when I had to go and like try to do something super salesy. So I would do it and just push through it because I had no choice, but it sucked, honestly. Now I don't feel that. Like, really going to an appointment, I don't have to like stretch and do yoga and get my head and start doing affirmations and jump up on a trampoline or anything. I'm just ready to roll because I know it's going to be a fun, easy conversation. We're just going to be two people talking, and I've learned the science and the structure of how to naturally talk with people. I learned it very quickly because it was so much easier than doing something that was unnatural for me. And that whole being slick and quick talking always felt a little scammy to me because I'm an analytical guy. So if anyone ever tried doing that slick stuff on me, I would not allow it because I'd be like, man, I can see that a mile away. So since I don't believe in slick talking, it was pretty hard for me when all my sales coaches were like, you got to do this, you got to use this super duper close. And I did it because I just didn't, I didn't know enough about sales and I didn't realize it. So I'm very happy these days that people are getting like that. There's been this movement to honesty and rapport, right? There's this movement to that. A lot of people are talking about it. And so I'm very happy about that because I think for years it was always, just do this super cool, slick thing. It's really not servicing people at a high level. And I'm not saying if you're selling cable or door to door selling, solar panels for a roof or something, this wouldn't work. But for what we're doing, it's a big, big play, right? It's a very big play, very important decision that most people only make once in their life. And they don't want to get it wrong. All right. So we have to be part of helping them not get it wrong.
So let's take a little bit of a transition and talk about the actual systems that a business would need to flip 1 to 2 houses a month. Since we covered all the myths and things like that, what would you say, in your opinion, Mike, are some of the systems that you need to start flipping 1 to 2 houses a month consistently?
Well, consistently. So there's a handful of things, and I'll walk through them quickly. But if you're going to run a consistent business, and if you're new, you need to learn all these things. And if you've already been in the business, then you need to unlearn some of the stuff you think that's holding you back, because there's so many things in my first couple of years that I believed that just weren't true. Or maybe they were true at the time and then things changed and they weren't true later on. So like you always know that no matter where you lie in this game, there's room to improve. I made big changes just in the last couple of years after doing 700-800 flips, and I had to start changing. The market required it. It didn't give me a choice. So number one is you got to have a consistent flow of 5-star sellers that are hot to trot, that have the ability to sell their home, motivation, and, want to work with you. From there, it's like once you have those sellers coming in, this is not an easy thing. There's a lot of people out there teach you how to like market and, do all these things where just leads are coming in, all these cool things are happening, but they're not very qualified leads. So I would call that a consistent flow of like 2-star sellers, not 5-star sellers. So a 5-star seller, someone has equity, has motivation, wants to talk with you. And really, if you can give them a number, it makes sense. They're willing to listen to you, right? They're willing to look at your comps and look at your renovation budget and look at the money you're making and rationally say, you know what, that seems like a fair offer. Let's go. Like that is a 5-star prospect. I wish they were all 5 stars, but ultimately 4 or 5-star, you're in good shape. You got to stay away from the 1, 2, and 3 stars. Because see, a lot of times people pull in all their leads and realize that if you get 100 leads, about 85, 90 of those leads will be 1, 2, and 3 star. And only about 10 of them will be 4 and 5 star, if that, like 1 and 10 or 4 and 5. That's it. And that's if it's a good quality lead source. If it's a bad quality, it might be like 1 in 100. So we got to make sure we got high quality lead sources that are bringing in those really awesome 5-star clients. Once you get those clients, now this is the next step: is you got to have a repeatable process for closing deals. Meaning how to get in there and have a conversation and work through the fact that they want 200K, but their house is only worth 125. Right? We have to be able to work them from there. Right? Sales is not going in and somebody wants 125 and you give it to them. It's your ability to take them from the 200 to the 125 that their house is actually valued at, because everyone wants more than they can get for their house, because again, this is the only time they're going to probably do this deal in their life, so they don't know, and they obviously don't want to lose a bunch of money. The next piece, and that's step 1 and 2, and the next piece is you got to be really good at deal analyzation. So when you're in there, a big part of being able to close concisely is your ability to look at the house and understand the renovation cost and understand all these factors so you get your deal analyzation right. And in order to be a great deal analyzer, you need to understand comps at a much higher level. You're not asking a realtor. You need to be able to look at them. And you then, second, you need to nail the repair cost and make sure you're able to hire the right contractors to get done on time and on budget, because as you're nailing those repair costs, then you're going to be able to put that in and figure out what your profits are, and you're going to be able to come in and make a very strong offer knowing that, okay, I can get that done for 53.5 and I'll get that done 4 months and it's going to sell for 220. So I know I can pay X for it, which probably be about 100, maybe 90, or right around 90 or 100 for it, somewhere in that ballpark. So you know that because you know your math, right? Now, if you're not so certain about the renovation cost or what it's going to sell for, then you're going to start being very vague, and that number's not going to be very dialed in, and you're going to be all over the place. And guess what? You're also going to be very unconfident, right? Your confidence level is going to be super low, and you're going to be talking to people, and you're going to be thinking about the numbers, thinking about, well, what if I paid too much? You're going to be thinking about a million things, and what you're not going to be thinking about is like, how do I best service this person? How do I build rapport with them? How do I hear what they have to say? I can get in, and this is what we all have to learn. This is the first thing I learned, is be able to walk in 10 minutes, figure the numbers out, and then talk to them for however long you need to talk to them about the things that matter to them. Like, that's the next step of this, right? So then the last piece is you got to know where to get all the money to fund all this stuff. So, you got to know how to get the right leads, right? How to talk to sellers. You got to analyze deals. You got to estimate repairs, and you need the money to fund the deals. Like, where's that coming from? Whether it's from an investor, you need to know how to talk to them and do all that. So it sounds like a lot, right? I mean, it sounds like, oh man, that's a lot to learn this business. But ultimately, if you can get those things right, there's simple ways to do all those things. You just have to have, it's a process you learn over a couple of months, not over a weekend, right? It's why every boot camp I've ever done has done nothing but confuse me. And boot camps are cool to get your ideas flowing and all that. But if you really are committed to results, then they happen in like long-term, commitments where you're learning and every week and just getting better.
Let's go through an example of a business that's doing maybe like 1 house a month. What are the numbers like on a business like that? Because I'm sure that's something that, a lot of new investors can aspire to do, create 1 house a month. flipping, was that 12 houses a year? What did the numbers look like for that, just off the top of your head?
Well, the simple math of like what we start a lot of students out at, and I think it's like the number one business model, is just doing one house a month. And you don't even have to renovate all those. You could legitimately just like renovate, say, 6 of them at say $30,000, and you're at 180K in gross income there. And then the other 6 you could wholesale at 10K, put you at another 60K. So now you're sitting at 240 in gross income. To do one deal a month, if you're, local to East Coast and all that, and you can do that easily off the MLS with wholesalers or minimum marketing, right? Really very well pointed marketing that's going to get really great results. Like you put $1 in, you get $10 out kind of thing. So you can do that very easily. And when you're good at what you do, like you learn everything we just talked about, the steps we just said, getting a deal a month is not hard, right? Often what a lot of people come in and they're thinking like, oh, I just want one deal a month. The next thing you know, they're getting 3 and 4 deals a month. And then their issue becomes like, what do I do with all these deals? And that's why we end up being wholesalers too. I believe in renovating everything. But with that being said, if I do 50 or 60 deals a year, I'm generally renovating about 40 of them and selling off about 20 as wholesale deals, because unfortunately they don't all come in when I need them. So I end up being a wholesaler by default, because I have to have a nice way of flowing deals through my business. And when you create that steady stream of good prospects and you have a process for estimating the deals and talking to sellers and getting the repairs right and locking that deal up and making money, well, you don't turn deals down at that point, because there's always someone out there who wants the deal and he's willing to pay you a premium. And we use 10K as a very, very basic kind of foundation, but it's not uncommon in the market the way it is today to get 20 and 30 and 40K assignment fees where you sell off your deals to someone else. So yeah, you often, like one of the students I was just talking to today, he had a deal. He's actually got an offer for about 42K more than he paid for it. And we start running the renovation. If he did it, it looks like he's only gonna make about 25K. So I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm trying to get a couple extra grand out of the guy. I'm like, get your couple extra grand, but if you can't, make sure you go forward, because you're actually making more than renovating it, wholesaling it. So we're seeing a lot of that these days. Now, it doesn't mean your business should be all in one basket. You should just be a wholesaler. You should be doing both, because you will make more money as a renovator. And renovation goes through all markets, right? It's very recession proof, because we're renovating first time home buyer houses. There's always going to be first time home buyers who need a home. And whatever the market is, there's always going to be, I got to get out my mom's basement. I want to stop renting. Like people are always going to want to be homeowners, no matter how bad the market is. So there'll always be a place for house flippers who serve that market. And any bad, good, doesn't matter where we are.
I think we covered a lot of great ground here. I guess my last question is, what would you say in closing would be the number one tidbit of advice for someone who, like we say, we want to get to flipping 1 to 2 houses a month, in your opinion?
Yeah, just reverse engineer it. If you want to get one deal a month, know that it's going to take X leads a month to get one deal. So if you're closing 1 in 20, then you're going to need 20 leads a month. That's 5 leads a week, and that turns into one deal a month. And now once you have the process for generating those leads, closing them, and getting that done, now you have to start saying, okay, how do I, renovate half of these and wholesale the other half off? So now I'm going to need contractors. I'm going to have to know how to estimate. And now you're starting to grow a business that makes 200-300K a year pretty easily, and just doing one house a month. It's really sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And when you're doing things incorrectly, doing one house a year can be difficult. But when you're doing things well, and you're really taking that, what I call house flipping 2.0, that next level of house flipping, one house a month is like retirement. It's super easy. And I mean, literally, I've had times where I've done as much as 8 or 9 houses a month. And I have friends that are doing 20, 30 a month. And I've never wanted to do that many, but that's still too many. But at the end of the day, like, I've done as many as 10, 12 houses a month, and, 150 houses a year. And I just think that's a lot. Right now, I'm probably averaging more like just like 1 a week, probably. So like 3 or 4 a month, 50 a year. And that's very kind of mild pace. But if I was only doing 1 a month, I mean, I could be making a great living. Right? I could be doing anything I want. So I love just reverse engineering it and knowing everything you need in place in order to consistently do one house a month. You got to be able to buy them, right? You got to be able to get everything done, get them financed, and then you got to be able to get the people to do the work or the people to buy them at a nice premium so you make money. But everything happens with a system, right? It's knowing each step of the system and understanding it at a high level. That's why anyone who really is very committed to being a great house flipper, they'll be willing to put some time into this, right? They're not just going to jump in and do it in the first week. I don't believe anyone can. I think anyone who thinks they're an expert after a week, a month is usually just, crazy in general. But cocky, right? Or I don't even know, unrealistic or cocky. I don't really know the best word for it, but probably one of those two.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all that I got for you, Mike. Unless there's anything else you think, you want to talk about or add.
No, man. I think I've wore you down today. Like, your energy level in general is like, dude, that was everything. It sounds like you're overthinking right now. You're like, oh man, that was a lot. Dude, so we always want to give good value. We don't hold anything back. And I know if you're listening and you're new, this is a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time to really dive in with us, because this is the good stuff. It sounds complicated. It's a little, if you're new and you've never done a deal, this might feel a little bit over your head. But when you hear how things are done the right way, eventually it gets easy. So just keep listening. I've often had to listen to things more than 2 or 3 times to really get it. So don't feel if, some of the stuff felt like it was a little too above the rim, like just listen to it more than one time. Totally cool. I do this all the time when I hear concepts I just don't totally get right now. And then after I listen to it a few times, because the first time you hear anything, it's like you're almost just taking it in because it's something different than what you're used to. The second time, you're actually paying attention and analyzing. By the third time, you're starting to like own it, right, and repeat it. And I'll see people by the time they've heard something that's really inspiring and clear, by the third time, they start now telling others, right? They're able to say, Delante, you know what? You can do this, this, and this. What do you think about that? And you start having a discussion around it. That's where we see our students go. Like month 1, they're generally like, whoa, this is some high level stuff. Month 2, they're like, okay, I got it. I'm understanding it. I'm doing stuff. Month 3, they're like telling others about it and jumping in saying, no, do this, do that. And that's when you're at that level where, you now can go and talk to an investor and get them to give you money to flip houses, or, get people to believe in you, right? Because now you're repeating it and you feel confident around it. But again, that was not the get rich and one night kind of thing that a lot of people want to hear. I know I wanted to hear for many years, and it took me a while to understand that this is not a get rich quick game. It's a get rich quicker than most, but not overnight for sure. Right. So thanks Delante for being on the show. And I wanted to share that. If anyone wants to work with us and do any coaching, feel free to send me an email at mike@theflipfactor.net. You can also visit our website where we have the podcast and a lot of free trainings and all kind of cool stuff. And that's theflipfactor.net. Pretty simple. Name of the show.net. So everyone, thank you. And Delante, thanks again for being a great guest, and I always love having you on the show. You're awesome, man. I just want to let everybody know who's listening how much I appreciate your time, and my work is all done here and yours has just begun. Get out there and win some high profit flips over and over, man.